The PMP exam frequently tests stakeholder identification and prioritization. Many students can memorize the power interest grid, but struggle when applying it to realistic project scenarios. In this lesson, we will examine the 4 stakeholder quadrants and learn how to select the correct engagement strategy for each situation. By the end, you should be able to analyze stakeholder power and interest levels and answer PMP-style questions with confidence. The PMP exam asks stakeholder prioritization questions in many different forms. This is where students who have read the chapter often get tripped up. The most common mistake is assuming that every stakeholder deserves the same amount of communication and attention. Early in my career, I made exactly that mistake. I am Paul from Panda. I have spent 25 years managing projects, and I can tell you that stakeholder management is often the difference between project success and project failure. The stakes are higher than many people realize. Over-communicating with stakeholders who do not need detailed updates consumes valuable project time and resources. Under-communicating with a stakeholder who has significant authority can create even greater problems. Imagine a project with a $500,000 budget. If a critical stakeholder feels ignored and withdraws support, that budget can disappear overnight. Effective stakeholder engagement helps project managers avoid both extremes. Before using the power interest grid, we need to understand what a stakeholder is. A stakeholder is any individual, group, or organization that may affect, be affected by, or perceive itself to be affected by a project decision or outcome. The power interest grid classifies stakeholders according to 2 dimensions. The first is power, which reflects their ability to influence the project. The second is interest, which reflects how much they care about project outcomes. Combining these dimensions creates 4 distinct engagement strategies. Here is an important point that students often miss. High power does not automatically mean high engagement. A senior executive may have tremendous authority but very little day-to-day interest in project details. In that situation, managing them closely may actually be inefficient. Consider how your communication approach would change for someone with high authority but low interest compared with someone who is highly involved and highly influential. The correct engagement strategy depends on both dimensions together. Let us work through a realistic exam-style scenario. Imagine a hospital IT deployment project with 12 identified stakeholders. 3 are classified as high power and high interest. 4 are high power but low interest. 2 are low power but high interest. The remaining 3 are low power and low interest. This stakeholder mix is typical of many large projects and provides a useful example for applying the power interest grid. Now let us convert those numbers into engagement strategies. 3 of the 12 stakeholders, or 25%, belong in the Manage Closely category. 4 stakeholders, or 33%, belong in Keep Satisfied. 2 stakeholders, or 17%, belong in Keep Informed. The final 3 stakeholders, or 25%, belong in Monitor. The key lesson is that communication effort should be prioritized. The project manager collaborates closely with the 3 high-power and high-interest stakeholders while providing concise executive updates to the Keep Satisfied group. Here is what I see most often, and one of these mistakes caught me early in my career. The first mistake is over-reporting to executives. Many project managers send extensive technical reports to stakeholders who only need strategic summaries. The second mistake is completely ignoring stakeholders with low power and low interest. While they may require less attention today, stakeholder positions can change throughout the project lifecycle. Monitoring them allows you to detect shifts before they become major issues. A simple 3-step process can help you manage stakeholders systematically. First, create a stakeholder register and document all relevant stakeholders. Second, develop a stakeholder engagement plan that identifies communication channels, frequencies, and engagement objectives. Third, place each stakeholder into the appropriate power interest grid quadrant based on their current situation. Following these 3 steps gives the project team a structured and proactive engagement strategy before project execution begins. This is where PMP exam logic differs from real-world instinct. In practice, project managers sometimes invite everyone to every meeting just to avoid complaints. The PMP exam expects a more targeted and strategic approach. If a stakeholder's power or interest changes during the project, your first action should be to update the stakeholder register and reassess their position on the grid. Only then should you adjust communication and engagement activities accordingly. Let us test your understanding with the first scenario. A senior financial regulator has enough authority to stop an enterprise software installation across 14 departments. However, this regulator has very little day-to-day interest in project activities. Which engagement strategy should the project manager use? Should the stakeholder be managed closely, monitored, kept satisfied, or provided with detailed weekly technical reports? Pause for a moment and decide which option best fits their power and interest profile. The correct answer is keep satisfied. This stakeholder has high power and low interest. The goal is to maintain confidence and support through concise, high-level updates. The stakeholder does not require constant involvement in project operations. A common mistake is selecting manage closely. While the stakeholder has influence, their low level of interest means excessive communication may waste effort without providing additional value. Now consider a community representative involved in a municipal construction project. This person has no formal authority over project decisions, but is highly interested in environmental impacts and project outcomes. Which engagement strategy should the project manager apply? Should the stakeholder be managed closely, kept informed, kept satisfied, or monitored? Think about the stakeholder's power and interest levels before moving to the next slide. The correct answer is keep informed. This stakeholder has low power but high interest. Individuals in this category care deeply about project outcomes and benefit from regular communication. Keeping them informed helps maintain support and manage expectations. A common mistake is choosing monitor. Ignoring a highly interested stakeholder may lead to dissatisfaction, resistance, and avoidable project challenges later in the project lifecycle. For the final scenario, imagine a department head who has both high organizational power and high interest in a technology rollout project. The stakeholder is openly skeptical about the project and raises concerns frequently. Which action should the project manager take first? Should the stakeholder be engaged directly, moved into a different category, escalated to the sponsor, or managed through a scope adjustment? Consider the principles of stakeholder engagement before continuing. The correct answer is manage closely. This stakeholder has both high power and high interest. The project manager should engage directly to understand concerns, build trust, and align expectations. Direct engagement is usually the most effective first response. A common mistake is escalating immediately to the sponsor. The PMP exam generally expects project managers to address stakeholder concerns directly before escalating issues whenever possible. Let us return to the opening example. An important stakeholder was not managed appropriately, creating a risk to a project with a $500,000 budget. The lesson is not simply about memorizing 4 quadrants. The real value comes from applying the grid to identify priorities, focus communication efforts, and build stronger stakeholder relationships. When used correctly, the power interest grid helps project managers protect both project outcomes and stakeholder support. There are 4 key takeaways from this lesson. First, identify and document all stakeholders in the stakeholder register. Second, assess each stakeholder's power and level of interest. Third, place stakeholders into the correct power interest grid quadrant and tailor engagement accordingly. Fourth, continue monitoring stakeholders throughout the project because their influence and interest can change over time. Stakeholder management is an ongoing process rather than a one-time exercise. Before moving on to the next lesson, review a stakeholder engagement plan from one of your projects or examine a sample template if you are preparing for the PMP exam. Check whether the communication effort assigned to each stakeholder matches their actual power and interest levels. If this lesson helped strengthen your understanding of stakeholder management, subscribe to PM Panda and continue building your project management foundation with the next video.